Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. I just want to talk about Venus ingressing into Gemini and some of the aspects that she's going to have over the next few weeks, including forming a conjunction to Mercury, to the North Node, forming an aspect to Neptune and Saturn, and there's quite a few aspects there. So I guess let me just share my screen and bring up the chart just to give us those visuals. So I was playing around with a chart before, so disregard that one. So 8th of May, okay. Just trying to move something here. And okay. So 8th of May, that's today. For myself and for many of you, it will be the 7th of May. So you can see here, Venus is at 2856 of Taurus. Mercury is at 656 of Gemini. So I'm going to animate the chart, and as we progress forward, just one day, I've just gone into the 9th, which will be the 8th. For many of you, you can see Venus is now in Gemini. Now, remember I spoke about briefly about Venus in my new moon in Taurus video, and I was simply bringing to our attention that Venus has recently just started moving away from the sun's beams, being very close to the sun. We had the Aries Venus star point in March, and that was an evening star, and that was a Sun-Venus conjunction. And so Venus, when she's so close to the sun, her light is obscured by the sun. And symbolically, what that is showing us is a journey that Venus takes into the underworld, which is symbolic to our life about Venus, you know, relationships, love, beauty, money, art, harmony, creativity, all those things. So we've gone through quite an internal sort of process with Venus, and that might have meant as well not being as social or as active in a social sense out there, connecting with people as much, because when Venus is in the underworld, which is the whole myth of Inanna, she's going through a very deep personal process of reevaluating things, right? She's hidden, she's in the underworld, so she's gone within, and we need to kind of think about that metaphorically. Motorbikes, they are very loud. I love them, but they are very loud. As I was saying, the journey that she takes us in through the underworld is, you know, symbolically the journey that we go through in our own life, within ourselves, relative to reevaluating a lot of different aspects of whatever Venus means in our life, right? We all know what Venus means, and so a lot of that also has to do with, you know, the natal position of your Venus, you know, what sign is she in, what house is she in, and things like that. Because I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but when you're actually looking at any transiting planet, any planet, relative to where that planet is at the moment, for instance, and in this case we're talking about Venus, the transits of Venus around your chart are going to obviously speak to and point to matters around that area of your chart that she's traveling in. But it's always important to understand that where is she placed in your natal chart, because it's the matters are always going to link back to that in some kind of way. So whatever her location was at your birth, let's just say she was in the 4th house, you know, or in the 5th, you know, wherever she may be, her transits around the chart are always going to somehow connect back to her natal position. That's an important point to understand and also observe with every transiting planet, right? So Venus is moving away from the sun. She's setting in the evening sky on the western side. As I said, you can see her setting now. You can actually see her light because she's moved far away enough from the sun to be visible again in the sky. And that again is a metaphor for all Venus things actually coming back to light for us again. So there's a different sense of perspective now, and there's a different way of looking at the Venus things in your life, and you are seeing things that have been sort of churning over, or things that you've been processing, let's say, for the last few weeks while she's been, or the last couple of months really, while she's been so close to the sun and hidden out of view. Hidden and out of view means that it is out of our conscious mind. That can be said for the 4th, 12th and 8th houses, because they are the water houses of the birth chart, okay? Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, and all water signs connect to the unconscious component of our psyche, of our beingness. So the unconscious component is out of view. So that's a similar thing in trying to understand when Venus's light is obscured and hidden and it's out of view. It represents a component of our psyche that is unconscious, that Venus enters into, right, while she's shuffling through and working things out, re-evaluating. You know, Venus is always the planet that's going to re-evaluate things in our life, particularly from the Venusian level. So moving away from the sun, we can see her light back in the sky. The journey and the process is now beginning to become more clearer around what we have reevaluated and assessed while she's been in the underworld. Now in Gemini, Venus is a very interesting Venus. And interesting is the key word for Gemini, isn't it? So Venus in Gemini can point to many, 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 many different things, right? And Venus herself points to many, many things. One book that I've made reference to previously, which is called The Rulership Book by Rex E. Bills. It's a book that has, how many pages does it have? About 500 pages, right? So it's quite a lot of work in there. And what this person has done, he has thought of every single association that he could put with all of the planets. So all the different things that could possibly connect with Venus, he's got it here in this book. It's a really great book to have if you are seriously studying astrology, because there are things that you would not have even thought about or considered relative to what Venus could connect to. And it just helps you expand your mind, expand your understanding beyond the, I suppose, the basic sort of understanding of what Venus might connect to in our life, which most people have the understanding that Venus is the goddess of love. You know, she connects to our values, our personal sense of self-worth, love, sharing, giving, affection, attention, you know, all those things. But there's hundreds and hundreds of things in this book that describe what correspond to Venus that you wouldn't have even thought of. So I highly recommend getting this book. So Venus in Gemini, she's quite a flirtatious goddess in the sign of Gemini. She's very social. She's like basically a social little butterfly. I mean, think about Gemini, you know, a mutable dual air sign, which can change directions in any given moment. It's flying around, darting around all over the place. So Venus in that sign, she's enhancing the qualities of Gemini through a Venus experience. So she's an extremely curious goddess, curious about love, curious about learning, curious about language, the whole world of technology becomes quite a focused sort of area as well, because Gemini connects to, you know, the internet, social media, you know, podcasts, you know, all those different sorts of things that we are all in some kind of way linked to or connected to, you know, through people we listen to, people we watch, you know, things like that. So I think Venus in Gemini will be very, very busy, you know, very busy for the next around about 4 weeks. And there might be just a greater sense of being able to come out of your shell if you've been in a bit of a hibernating mode. I know for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, you're stepping into summer. Lucky you guys. I'm so envious because I love summer and we're about to go into winter. I love all the seasons, but, you know, winter is cold and yeah, I'm not a big fan of cold weather. But anyway, so of course we will experience it quite differently here because the seasons and the weather, you know, makes such a profound impact on our state of mind, the activities we're going to engage in, the social level of activity will be engaged in as well. You know, it's all these things come into the mix. But Venus in Gemini, she could be the goddess who's having multiple love affairs, for instance. You know, that's a highly possible theme. It could be that you're exploring the potential of 2 different people. You know, that's, I mean, this is not about right or wrong or judgment. You know, there's no place for that for anybody to, well, in my opinion anyway. I don't think we should make judgments of people's choices in a lot of different ways, you know, in a lot of different ways. Everyone is learning and growing in their own personal way, right? So look, I've got Juno in Gemini, so I suppose I'm able to be very accommodating to people who might be in a position who are exploring the potential of, you know, 2 different partners. I don't see anything wrong with that. So anyway, that's just another theme that can come up. And I'm not talking about cheating and lying behind people's backs and things like that. I don't agree with that. I don't judge if people do that. That's their business. But that's not, they're not my morals and values, you know. So anyway, but, you know, Venus in Gemini, she's just going to be so damn curious to explore her options. You know, there's many options with Gemini. You know, it's not just 2 options. There's multiple options, because even though Gemini is the twins, you know, the dual sort of nature, again, think about Gemini from that point of view of just how incredibly curious that sign is by its very nature. It's interested in absolutely everything, but only for about a second. Not all the time. Sometimes, you know, it can stay with things you know, for longer periods of time. But generally, for Gemini, it's like when it comes into the awareness of something that it's interested in, one of the reasons it'll lose its focus and be drawn or interested into something else is because it sort of has this sense about, well, if I pay attention to this, you know, for a really long time, I'm missing out on all these other things that I could be looking at and exploring as well. And hence why Gemini, you know, is this sign that just flies and floats around and is interested in just about everything, really. But as I said, for not long periods of time, generally speaking. So Venus in Gemini could amplify, you know, our social sphere. Can also bring in matters of siblings as well. You know, it's a sign that corresponds to siblings. Some of the other things, you know, would connect, especially while Venus, I'll just progress the chart forward to get her. Well, first of all, actually, what I might do is just talk about her being conjunct the North Node, because I think that's a very important aspect. The transiting North Node in Gemini, as you can see there, Venus has reached that point, which is around about the 17th of May, so about a week or so away. That's a really important conjunction, and, you know, technically Mercury is there as well. It's not too far away to suggest that they're not together, so it's more or less a triple conjunction. We could add Lilith as well, of course, if we wanted to, but I'll just stick to the Venus North Node and the Venus North Node Mercury as well. So the North Node is many, many different things, but it one of the things it is that it aligns us with certain people, certain connections we make. And it's usually positive associations or alliances that we form during a north node activation of some kind, whether it's your north node in your birth chart that's being activated, or whether we are observing the transiting north node relative to other planets coming in aspect with it, in this case Venus. And Venus is a benefic planet by nature, so she's the planet that brings benefits, benefic things, happiness, love, beauty, harmony, creativity. She connects to the women in our life, poetry, music, the senses, aromatherapy. It just the list is just endless. So Venus conjunct the North Node really does point to, and of course you need to read this in terms of where is this conjunction in your relative to your birth chart. The house that it's in is going to describe the area of where this particular energy is going to be activated, integrated, and so forth. So Venus North Node, positive alliances, positive associations that are very, very benefic, and that can bring a sense of happiness and connection into your life, because the North Node is very much, it sort of holds the energy of a Jupiter-Venus type of vibration, okay? Because it's an energy that helps us align with people and situations that enable us to grow and integrate into the North Node, right? That's relative to our North Node in our birth chart, and also the transiting North Node in real time at the present moment. So Venus benefic, North Node benefic, they come together, positive alliances, positive connections that bring some sense of happiness, a sense of sharing and connection, and something that enables you to grow in a very harmonious and positive way, right? So that's all tick, 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 tick. That's a fantastic transit. If we add the Mercury into the mix, that could bring in a number of different things, again, connected to the North Node Venus, that might just bring in new learning, new studying, new knowledge, new understanding, new networking, new ideas that again bring together some. It could be like for example, there's millions of examples, but this would be one of them. If it's the Venus North Node Mercury, it could be a female that would be signified by the Venus, of course. The Mercury is sort of gender fluid, so Mercury can be male or female, right? But the person that comes into your life, for instance, they will be described by the Mercury and the Venus. So it'll be somebody that you feel a very fond connection with, but you have a great mental connection with as well. There's a level of mental connection and some level of either heart, or just a fondness, just a real sort of sense of like, I really like this person. I feel really, really fond of this person. That's the Venus, right? So overall, a very, very positive transit, a very positive energy in terms of what it can bring. And because it's in Gemini, it is going to connect to new ideas. Again, new learning, or stepping into some kind of study. That's very close actually to when I'm doing my Venus class. So for those of you that have signed up already, and any others who may want to sign up, that's a perfect little combination there for just taking up my 2-day course, for instance, on Venus as well. So that there's just an example there. As we, well, actually, just a couple of other things. Mercury Venus energy. I'll just read something out of one of my books because I really like the way this is framed. It's very simple and it's very short. The ability to communicate love and affection, aesthetic thoughts. Aesthetic is Venus and thoughts is Mercury, right? The ability to be concretely creative as an artist, to use techniques to create beauty, ability in crafts, creative writing, thinking influenced by considerations of beauty or harmony rather than strict logic. Now, that's a very, very important point because, generally speaking, the Mercury part of our mind, which is connected to the linear mind, which is connected to just the everyday level of thinking and communicating, is generally for most of us, we operate from a real rational, logical level in terms of what we're thinking about, or who we're thinking about, or what we are communicating, or how we are communicating it, what we are interested in, and so forth, right? And this is a really interesting point to me. Now, Rob Hand says that thinking influenced by considerations of beauty or harmony rather than strict logic. Now, that doesn't sound negative, right? That sounds like a fairly neutral sort of statement. It's just sort of stating the obvious, really. But I remember years ago when I was studying my medieval astrology. Now, medieval astrology is very black and white, okay, and it doesn't use the outer planets either. So it's a very quite a different system of working with the archetypes. It's just the best way I can put it is it's very, very black and white. And there was one comment that I read in my material as I was studying that I thought was really interesting, because you'll never read this in mainstream, astrology what are they called, cookbook books, or whatever it's called. See, because Mercury is literally what you're thinking about, right, on every day, every second of the day, whether that's focused thought or unfocused thought, it's Mercury, it's the mind, it's thinking. When Venus comes close to Mercury, then it's because Venus is, she's so many things, but Venus is about our sensual appetites. It's the things that please us, that we want, right, that we desire for, from a Venus level, not a Mars desire level, but it's the sensual appetites and delights of life. So a Mercury Venus aspect conjunction can very easily point to our thinking being quite obscured by the sensual appetite of something that we really want, right? So it can be devious thinking, okay, if I'm just going to be really upfront about that. So it can be making decisions that perhaps would need to be based on logic, and not able to do that because your sensual appetite is overriding the logic part of your mind, and the way you need to see it, perhaps. So that's a very strong theme that comes up with Mercury Venus conjunctions, particularly, right? Just something to consider, because that would be there if you had a Mercury Venus conjunction in your natal chart, for instance, as well. Okay, so the other thing is, as we progress forward, I'm just going to take it to the exactness of Mercury Venus, and there it is there when Mercury is actually stationary. And so, in the next day, Mercury goes retrograde, right? So that's quite an interesting energy there, because Mercury is a faster moving planet, and here he's slowed down quite a bit, and Venus is going to bypass Mercury because Mercury has stopped to go retrograde. So if I click one more day, you can still see the S there, okay? So by the, it's actually late on the 30th of May, which will be the 29th of May for many of you. So 29th, 30th of May, Mercury has stopped and gone retrograde, and Venus, as you can see, she's at 27 degrees. So she's just kind of cruising past Mercury, which is slightly unusual because Mercury is the faster moving body of the two. So Mercury is going to take us through the retrograde period for the next few weeks from that date moving forward. I'll probably come back if I have time and talk about that a little bit more in depth. But it is a very interesting energy to observe because Mercury entered Gemini around about the 4th of May. Venus entered Gemini around the 8th of May. The transiting North Node is in Gemini. The Sun's in Gemini. And the following month, we have a lunar eclipse in Gemini. So I'll just show you that, which is on the 10th of June. Now you can see there, there's a North Node, Moon, Sun, and of course Mercury is there as well because Mercury's gone retrograde. So we have this quadruple conjunction or stellium of planets, right? So the North Node being there with the Sun and Moon being together, new moon. The North Node is what shows us that this is an eclipse, okay? And it's a solar eclipse because a solar eclipse is a new moon. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen certainly around this time. But one thing I want to say is that the good news is that this particular solar eclipse belongs to a Saros cycle, which is really, 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 really positive, really positive. And it does connect actually very, very much to psychic abilities, to dreams, to connecting to a lot of inner sort of material that enables you to have a clearer sort of vision and perspective on, right? It's a beautiful eclipse, actually. It's very magical on the psychic spiritual plane of things, right? And by this stage, Jupiter has already ingressed into Pisces. This is not a coincidence that we have this solar eclipse, which represents psychic abilities, and Jupiter has ingress into Pisces, which is another signature for the magicians and the psychics and the empaths and the intuitive people and so forth to really reach a very enriching level with their journey with on those sorts of things, right? But I will come back and actually talk about Jupiter in Pisces in a separate video. Okay, so but I just wanted to highlight that because it's very obvious to me that there's an absolute beautiful synchronicity here with the solar eclipse in Gemini, which represents, as I said, in fact, I'll just quickly read you what Bernadette Brady says. So it's amazing. I love this. She says, this is a very joyful, happy family of eclipses. And she rarely doesn't use that those words for many eclipses. Eclipses are usually, especially solar eclipses, they're usually pretty hardcore. They're hard work. Anyway, there is a sense of good news, falling in love, a peak experience that is joyful in some way, the benefits that appear in the individual's life. Hang on, am I reading the right one? Yeah, let me just double check. Oh, sorry, guys. Back up. I had a feeling I was reading the wrong one. That's okay because the one I'm about to read is just as positive, but it's not about falling in love. So sorry for all you souls out there looking for love. You may have to wait a little bit longer. Okay, so this eclipse, sorry, it belongs to five north. Okay, and here it is. So a very unusual Saras series involving sudden flashes of ideas that seem to have a psychic or unconscious flavor to them. Hunches, visions, prophetic dreams are the essence of this family of eclipses, a truly creative series which should leave the individual enriched. The ideas or hunches which come from this eclipse can be acted upon. Now, that is freaking spectacular. If that's not spectacular, I don't know what is. But I love this energy. I love what she says about it. I will come back and talk about that obviously when we have that new moon, which is around the 9th, 10th of June, which is also the solar eclipse. And we'll talk about that at that time. But this is just something to kind of keep in mind as you're watching the Venus ingress into Gemini. I'll just go back to the present. Because this upcoming solar eclipse is in Gemini, it enhances the energies of Venus very much. It enhances Mercury very much as well. You know, the North Node's in Gemini. All that Gemini activity is being amplified by this solar eclipse. And just remember that solar eclipses, the energy of them can actually start to kick in up to 3 months prior to the actual date. So the date was the 9th or 10th of June. That energy is already active. It's already in play. The exactness of it is on the 9th and 10th. And also the energy of that can be active post that date, a couple of months post that date as well. So whatever that solar eclipse is activating, which solar eclipses generally do bring about, not always for every single person, but when they do hit something off in your chart, solar eclipses are generally not the easy eclipse. Like lunar eclipses are a little bit softer, I think. But the good news is that, according to Bernadette Brady, this particular eclipse belongs to a great family, unusual, as she said, where it can trigger some psychic memory or material things that will probably be really, really helpful for you in terms of your own understanding of things you've been working through. And because, as again, like I said, Jupiter ingresses into Pisces, that just enhances that whole psychic field, the spiritual work that we are doing, the spiritual abundance and growth, because Jupiter is all about growth and abundance. And in Pisces, it's Jupiter in Pisces is just spectacular. It's just magical. So, yeah, very interesting energies while Venus is transiting through Gemini. Let's just keep moving forward. Venus is going to square Neptune, and that's coming up. It's approaching. You can see there Venus is at almost 20. Neptune's almost 23. So that energy is active there, but it is exact by around about there, or just around about here, around about the 27th. So towards the end of the month. That's an energy that's really only active for a couple of days. Now, that could be interesting because if you are, there's millions of examples, but let's just say that you were playing around with the notion of two different partners that you were, or two different potential partners, two different potential relationships that you were maybe thinking about. When the Venus square Neptune kicks in, that's going to create a little bit of a blur around perhaps what you're seeing in those situations or people. So I would just be very careful around the decisions you make, because at the same time, Mercury is squaring Neptune here. And actually it was exactly square at starting from around about the 23rd of May. So that week, 23rd of May, sort of really to the end of May, is a very, very significant week because Mercury is about to go retrograde towards the end of this month. Venus is leading up to a square to Neptune, and Mercury also squares Neptune. So there's a build-up of energy here that can be a little bit tricky to handle, because don't forget, Mercury and Venus being together, the thoughts are going to be clouded by what you're really wanting to attract, and what pleases you, and your central sort of appetites and delights. So the logic kind of gets a little bit swayed from that. And then add in Neptune into the picture, there can be, complete idealism, right, about a particular personal situation. So not seeing it for what it is, And Mercury is also squaring Neptune. I've spoken about Mercury square Neptune, I think, in a couple of my last videos, made a few points about that. And I suggested that if there were negotiations going on that are of a quite a serious nature, whether that's through verbal or written documentation, communication, I suggested that it would be very wise to read the fine print, to maybe have another person, look at it for you as well before you kind of rush in and just kind of make a decision very quickly, because Gemini acts very quickly on all things. It doesn't stop to reflect. It's not a reflective sign. It just acts and thinks very quickly and chops and changes. And because Gemini is the sign that will change its mind very quickly, if you agree to something very quickly without really having reflected on it or having had somebody else look over it for you, and then you just want to change your mind, it might just be too late to pull out, and that might not have very good consequences for you. So, an important sort of energy to really think about when it comes to those sorts of matters, because Neptune is absolutely going to influence that Mercury Venus aspect. Also, Venus is going to form a trine to Saturn, or she already has, actually. We've gone past it. Let me just go back. So it's around about here. So really we're looking at a very powerful week for Venus from around about the 20th of May, or, oh gosh, it's really before that, because it begins when she's conjunct the North Node. Okay, so it's really half of May, isn't it? We're talking about from around about the 17th of May right through to the end of May. There's a lot of things going on with Venus, which means there's a lot of things going on with our social life, our friendships, our love life, our money, our values, our interactions, our activities, the things that we enjoy and the things that please us. And because it's in Gemini, as I said, there's an abundance of ideas, energy circulating all over the place. And that's another thing to kind of watch, I suppose. I mean, it's awesome because it creates a sense of, the social butterfly. You're excited. You just want to kind of move around and explore different things, or different friendships or different ideas or whatever it may be. But it can also kind of wipe you out a little bit with your energy. So it's important to think about, it's one thing to be curious, and I think being curious is one of the most healthiest things we can be with our mind. But it's another thing if you take that curiosity to a level where you're not sort of having any boundaries of what you are taking in, and what you are allowing into your field as well. Because of the nature of Gemini being so curious, there's just, it's like a thirst for knowledge, basically, a thirst for communication and ideas and sharing and stuff like that. Venus is about sharing. And that can generate incredible, how can I put it? It can give you lots to think about in terms of new connections that you make or new ideas that you form, whether that's on a personal or even professional level. So that's wonderful. But just try to have, a bit of a detector there to help you detect when you're sort of, you know, going all over the place with it, and you're not really anchoring yourself in anything in particular. That might just be something to kind of watch and consider as well. Um, Venus trine Saturn is a great aspect because it's a trine, and that can add or act as a bit of a stabilizing force, to Venus, because in Gemini, she's just, as I said, the social butterfly flying all over the place. But the Saturn energy at around about this time of the month might just bring a little bit of that anchor or that stability that you kind of need, in terms of what you are investing yourself into, right? Your energy and so forth. So that's a nice aspect there. Um, Okay, I think that's pretty much it for today. I will come back and talk about Mercury retrograde. I'll also come back and talk about the solar eclipse in greater depth. But yeah, just have a think about where this Venus North Node Mercury dance is happening in your birth chart, because that's going to be the same area where the solar eclipse is going to happen, but the energy of that has already been activated. And, you know, Mercury and Venus, they're both connectors in different ways, but they're both planets that connect, right? Venus connects from the point of view of love, really, at the core and at the essence. And Mercury is the connector of thoughts and ideas. So you can see there's a lot of connections that can be made, whether that's mentally in your own sort of thinking, provided you can not get lost in the Gemini curiosity of not being able to stand still for a moment, right? But because the solar eclipse is in Gemini, it's amplifying all of this, and Mercury and Venus are bringing in. Mercury is bringing in all the ideas and information, and Venus is bringing in those those aspects of your heart, of who you want to connect with, you know, and what you want to share and who you want to share with, right? So all that stuff is just being totally amplified at the moment. So I will leave it there, and hopefully that's some food for thought for all of you. And I will see you guys with the next video, which actually will be either no, sorry, I know what it'll be. It'll be Jupiter in Pisces, and that's a big one, because the Jupiter in Pisces journey, which will end up forming a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces, although that doesn't happen until next year, but I'm going to talk about that. That's a very important aspect, because that last occurred in the 1800s. And that's, you know, we're talking about cycles then that really correspond to collective shifts and trends, and the turning of things, or things sort of reappearing as well, you know. So there's a lot of different things to unpack there, but I'll come back and talk about that. The main focus, however, will just be on the sheer magic of Jupiter in Pisces, and the benefit of that energy. And it is Pisces, right? So we are talking about spiritual energy, and that's going to be the main focus. So I'll see you guys soon. Much love, and happy new moon in Taurus that's coming up. And yeah, leave your comments and questions below.